So sometimes in a particular skill, the demand is high, but you find that because I can't be able to place them, we are very forced to take a smaller number.
Yeah.
Because the placement of occupational program and apprentice is not only one issue. And I think we are ready as colleges to implement, but that part, I don't want us to shelf it under the table, that the resources, development and funding, it has to come from all of us.
As long as the ability is there. And so I think for the sake of time, unfortunately, we have to finish off. So I think if anyone has any final thoughts on looking ahead, what one or two things that would have the biggest impact in fixing the issues that we have? I think, Melissa, you had, and then...
Okay, thanks, Chair. Maybe let me just start on the point I was trying to rise on earlier, because I do think it's a critical component around financial governance and oversight. And I want to align with saying when we were, as the NSF, working with DHET on the TVET allocation for occupational programs, we were proposing what is called programmatic approach, meaning that we don't have the stop-start that's going to then impact the throughput or the enrollment and subsequent throughput. So the funding alignment. But I think there are just some key issues that we would need to address at a policy level around the accountability frameworks. I'm sure when everyone hears NSF and a disclaimer or negative audit opinion for CETAs or NSF, it's actually an ecosystem representation on that accountability. So as much as we want to disperse, do we all understand what are the requirements for reporting for 10 billion on artisan development, for example? These are public funds at the end of the day. And maybe just to indicate that the president has announced various interventions for skills revolution. Obviously, one of them is putting the demand of the employer at the center with TVET. That's linked with the dual apprenticeship model. Correct. What does that mean for us from today going forward? Also, on the NSF side, the president pronounced that we would be moving towards an outcome fund model. What does that mean for the system? Also, the 40% mandatory grant. All of these are key policy regulatory shifts that we would need to implement in addition. I think let me just wrap up there. Thanks, Chair.
So,
yeah, well,
very
for me,
short final
yes,
thoughts, please.
Just going to make. So for me is, I know that the main theme is around what we do beyond numbers, but we must not forget that we still have quite a huge section of our society that we haven't tapped or hasn't benefited from the entire skills revolution. And the numbers that have been stated in the NDP of 30,000 per annum were informed by this big demand of people that are still looking for these opportunities. And wearing a cap from the NSA, where we're driving advocacy, governance, implementation support, we still promote the importance of the provincial skills development governance, which is run or falls under auspices of PSDFs. And we would want to say that to continue the numbers, but including relevance, is to model the skills development to the main economic drivers in the provinces and the districts. Correct. Because if not, we end up with people moving forced migration to the big centers where all other problems begin. And neglecting development at balance, and what we call it a balance, national development.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. So from My side is just to emphasize what he has said in terms of being inclusive within the different communities, whether we are rural. And from my organization, Kagiso Trust, our strategic intent, we are looking for those that are in rural or township areas because we think they're the ones that are marginalized. And we do that because we believe that building an innovation industry, responsive and socially inclusive workforce, it will require leadership that will be able to make strategic investment. And in that, with the collaboration I mentioned earlier, you are able to sustain collaborations because whether it's industry, whether it's NSF, whether it's CITAS, they need to have trust in what you are doing so that they can continuously invest. And not when they see the numbers should also talk to are the innovative ways or ideas from the leadership that are emerging at that stage. And I would like to emphasize more the issue of advocacy and awareness. How as the different departments, whether QTCOs, CITAS, TVETs, and with the changes that are there within the TVET space, how much work have we done going to the communities to make them aware? And when we do that awareness and advocacy, we are also demystifying that TVET sector is the sector for those that not do well when they go to university. It's for those that they can't do it. And maybe just to close that, the role for us as our organizations like myself and everyone who is here, it is important that to note that the future of skills will not be built in isolation. It can't be, it's all our business, and it will be through collaboration, innovation, and inclusion. And when we do that, we will even ignite the communities that are on the ground to see and be able also to access and see opportunities.
Thank you very much. So unfortunately we are out of time. I'm sure we could continue talking all day. I would really like to thank my esteemed panel for the insightful topics that we have spoken about, and I really hope going forward that we can really learn from what we've heard today, that the ecosystem example that you see here, that we can continue this to make the success of the apprenticeship system, which at the end of the day is about building our economy going forward. So I thank you, and thank you very much.
All right, colleagues, if you can just allow the panel to take a group photo. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for those applause. Truly appreciated. It means that we are still together. Thank you so much. Perhaps we can just do it once more, colleagues. Another round of applause. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thanks to our panel chair, Mr. Chris Oliver, and the distinguished panelists for those valuable insights. Clearly, colleagues, the future of skills development will require innovation, strong partnerships, and forward-thinking leadership. Before we get to our next presentation that is going to take us exactly to that space, please just allow me to address a number of issues. One is the acknowledgement of additional guests, distinguished delegates that have joined us today. So there would have been an acknowledgement, ladies and gentlemen, of dignitaries and special guests for the previous 2 days. And today I'm informed that we are joined by Mr. Babsin Tlapo from COSATU, Mr. Refitlile Baloyi from FEDUSA, Mr. Tebogo Kekana, President of SACPO, Mr. Chris Oliver, who was the chairperson of the panel from FESTO, Mr. Sibusiso Dladla, who is the acting CEO of Services SETA, who has come to represent Mr. Litlhonolo Masocha, who is the Services SETA administrator, Commander Tsietsi Mukele, who comes from Maritime Industry, Dr. Keza from Lipalale TVET College, Ms. Pamela Naidu, Director, Forestry and Agricultural Training Organization, Mr. Dev Moodley, National Chairperson, SA Motor Body Repairers Association, and owner of Fitness Panel Beaters, Dr. Leon Rawls, founder, South African. I think there's something missing there, pardon me. It just said South African, I'm sure it proceeds beyond that. And to everyone that have not mentioned, right? All of you, you are special and you are welcome. It's just that having to then, call each and every one of you will take a bit of time, but you are equally welcome and equally special. Thank you very much. I'm advised that panel 6 and 7, you are requested to meet with the panel leaders by the entrance when we take a tea break. So if you could please, in the meantime, organize yourselves as we move along with the program. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward, it is now my pleasure to invite to the stage a leader who has been actively advancing skills development and industry collaboration within our SETA ecosystem for a number of years. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming Dr. Feleng Yende, who is the CEO of FP&M SETA, who will speak on future-ready skills, bridging innovation, industry, and inclusion. Please help colleagues with a round of applause. Thank you very much. You're an awesome audience. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Program Director. Thank you very much. All right, I think the presentation has been loaded. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Feleng Yende. My task today is to look at the future-ready skills, bridging innovation, and inclusion. All protocol is observed. All right. So in my presentation, obviously I'll be looking at the objectives, the problem statement, industry as co-creator, inclusive skills pathways, a skills challenge in SA, challenges in SA. I'll also cover TVET transformation or reform. I'll look at industry pledges, possible commitments that we could look at as industry or business. I will also cover briefly the Vision 2030. I think yesterday we had the opportunity to really look at the concept of digital transformation and artificial intelligence. So I will really do the highlights today, but with emphasis in certain areas. Program Director, thank you very much. So in terms of the key objectives for the future-ready workforce priorities, whereby we really try to or begin to build a workforce equipped for emerging technologies and evolving business models. So when I was doing my research for the last studies that I did, previous ones, I looked at 4IR, and I actually looked at the distinction between fourth industrial revolution or digital transformation, if you like, and artificial intelligence. And when you look at the definition of digital transformation, it really talks about the beginning of acceleration or development of the digital space, digital framework, moving from paper to electronics, or digitization of the processes and streamlining businesses. But once you then move beyond that and you look at artificial intelligence, you are then accelerating the speed with which digitization is then happening. You're bringing much more innovation into the space. You bring in, whereas your digital transformation, you look at examples such as customer relations management. In your digital space, you'll then enhance that to the level of predetermination of your future skills. All right. So you look at solutions that look at your predetermination of future skills. You look at solutions that will look at the determination of risk in the process that you'd have built in running your business. So I think as we run and talk about the reform of this PSS system, it's important for us to really understand these types of digital transformation or of technological enhancements into our processes to try and bring about integration, but also speed or agility with which things are done. Because we're a massive ecosystem. I mean, you look at universities, you look at TVET colleges, we look at CT and also CETAs, and we often forget NSF, but it is indeed part of the ecosystem. So the alignment, aligning education, training, and industry priorities is actually quite important in preparing for the future of digitalization, which is the future now. If you think about it, we're already in it, but we are in it at a different phase, which we need to also look at as to whether have we already started, to what extent have we actually started with the digital transformation in the PSS system. We need to identify the demand-led skills, and I think your innovation, your digitization or digitalization, and your AI tools do assist us with process of efficient support of demand-led skills. All right, we don't need to actually be doing face-to-face with industry. We've got solutions and tools and technologies that are actually helping us to be able to get that information from a research perspective without really having to go out to the industry. So we need to accelerate digital literacy, data capability, innovation mindset to drive competitiveness and organizational growth while embedding continuous upskilling and reskilling. Now, the leadership in the PSET needs to be ready, needs to then embrace these changes so that we can then be able to see these changes that we need to prepare the sector for. Expanding access to future-ready skills, again, is important. The current, yesterday, and I think today as well, the panel that was just here now also spoke about that. We need that access to TVET colleges. I think TVET colleges are our baby now. All of us, we're saying we need to find a way to structure a TVET college that will be accessible. But we then also need to be able to say what type of resources and how do we then resource them to make sure that they meet the demands of the country. So in the reform of the system, these are some of the deliberations that we really need to look at with the DDG TVET together with the DDG acting skills for them to lead us into those type of discussions as to how do we then begin to migrate. The migration has happened. You know, I was looking at the white paper for peace education and training. I think that Lumka is not here because I was laughing when I was looking at that document. It was launched, I was just joining from business. I was in the mines and I was just joining the CITAS from business in 2013 when that document was launched by the former DG Ntate Gwebs and the former minister, Professor Nzimande. Now, when you look at that document is talking about the reform. It's one model of reform. It's in the document, but you know, we always don't really go into documents. So when you read the document, it specifically outlines what should happen between now and 2030, like when it was launched. The transition that is happening in the QC2O, where CETA roles or functions are now migrated to QC2O, are in the document. It's not something that's happening now and then, no, it's in the document. To say that QC2O will then take over the quality assurance from CETAs, is there? So that is part and parcel of the transition that we are now talking about, that it should happen. It is happening. Perhaps the question is, to what extent, or is this the transition we were anticipating or we would like to see? Not whether it should happen or not. The role of universities are actually clearly outlined in the PSET, the white paper for post-education and training. TVET colleges clearly outlined that it becomes a bigger structure that's going to be accessible, that's going to be expanded, and we need to support it. Then CETAs in the white paper are said to be entities that are going to be left with WSP management. It's not me, it's in the white paper. The management of WSPs and customer relations management. So CETAs will then be working with business to forge relations and get learners placed. But the training hub, in terms of the white paper, is the TVET system. So make time and have a look at the white paper, and you'll see the transition that you're talking about is actually there. So the question should not be, are we transitioning? Should we be transitioning? It should be, is this the type of transition that we're talking about, that we really want to see? Because in my mind, if you're going to have a CETA that's going to administer WSPs and customer relation management for placement, it significantly changes the design of CETAs. You can't have a heavyweight CEOs. I mean, darling, it's not going to happen. Because there isn't much to be done. There wouldn't be much to be done. So I just thought that I need to sort of talk to that, because I think it's important that we also have that understanding that we've got a document already that is informing the changes in the system. And the changes are happening. CETAs are moving. A lot of significant quality assurance work that CETAs were responsible for to QC2O. And of course, we have the 40% that is also in the pipeline. And once that happens, and I'm going to talk to that towards the last slide, you'll then see your smaller CETAs disappearing. Your FNM CETA, your PC, they disappear instantaneously because they're already at the lowest level of income. So they will then have to be the answer that says what then happens to markets like your clothing, your textiles, because those are core markets as well, which cannot, your forestry, those are core markets. Your printing, your publishing, your shoemaking, those are core markets. And those are township and rural economy-based type of markets that cannot be undermined. All right. So just in terms of going back to the presentation, the other area that we need to look at is to foster strategic partnerships, whether we're talking local or global type of partnerships. That is then very important. As the objectives for the preparation for future skills in innovation. Is there any agency to the skills revolution? Yes, there is agency, and I've really just touched on it. The agencies that transition is happening already. We're talking about it, but it's actually happening already. So we really need to be able to say, to what extent do you then bring in technology? Okay. To make sure that as we then move, this is the opportunity for us to then move with the right technologies that are going to bring about the advancements we need. Now, in tech, we have got what we call tech disruption. Automatically, we are disrupted, and we know that. So that becomes, it's important for us to look at your green technologies. We look at how we then change our traditional training methods. So as we're transitioning, what training methods do we want to actually inculcate? Particularly the investment that's going to go towards our TVET structure. TVET is aligned, we're clear, we're not debating whether we're going to be funding, it's a given. As a system, we're integrated. So there's no negotiation, it's the how. How do we then get into that well-structured process or design of getting resources into the TVET system, so that we have got the leadership in the DDGs that will then guide the process that we then need to support. There's obviously youth unemployment pressure, and one of the pressures is actually coming from the technology, where we are really rolling out tech-based methods of training in some instances. I mean, ETTP CETA, for an example, rolled out infrastructure enhanced technology to sort of support those. Where I was chairing at one TVET college as a chairperson, in Mpumalanga, we had, we opened, I think it's a SMME tech structure that was funded by ETTP CETA. But what ETTP CETA did, they did it in all 50 TVET colleges. And that's the work that CETAs are doing. The only issue, honestly, the only issue could then be sitting in terms of in our communication structures. To what extent are we really getting this information out there? But when you really look into the work of CETAs, there's a lot of work that has gone out there. So the development and support of tech strengthened infrastructure in 50 colleges, it's a big deal. And we really are proud of that. We have FASET that also did something similar. But I know because I witnessed the ETTP CETA one and how the design looked like. Youth unemployment crisis, we spoke about it, and it brings about the agency in the skills revolution. What is the mismatch? Is the mismatch having youth going to university, most of them coming back with theory that the economy doesn't need? That's a fact. If you look, and I do like to get into the debates of the preset as a whole, so that we can actually understand where the bottlenecks are at. We had a presentation now in the morning that was talking about bottlenecks. So we have quite a number. If you look at university completions, there's a huge percentage of young people that are then unemployed with a number of degrees, not one, perhaps most two or so. So that is a problem in its own. So we then need to say, as we move towards the expansion, what technology do we then embed in the expansion strategy of TVETs to make sure that it is seen as a sexier pathway that's going to support careers? That is important. I spoke to somebody that called me the day before yesterday. They wanted their child to do a grade 12. And they said, this is my child has got a disability, and what slow learning is a cognitive one. Now I started talking about the TVET structure and the SETA structure system of your, I know the NCVs and all of that, but also the artisan route. And this women are like, so my son can be admitted. Yes, your son can be admitted. But all of us, we want grade 12. Yeah. You must get grade 12. But we've got programs that are saying, you don't need to. We've got something that will give you equivalence of grade 12. We've got skills that are going to make you technician, an expert in that area. So I think the communication is actually not that strong at the basic education level, where we meet basic education and higher education, where we actually meet. And I think then technology becomes urgent for us to can be able to bridge that gap. Because the mama ended up saying to me, Mama, but you guys need to come to primary schools so that our learners understand the pathways. When can they actually join the skills ecosystem vis-a-vis we want the university entrance? Because all of us, we want our children to go to university because that's what we know. And careers and marketing, the work that we're doing in the skills ecosystem cannot be a waste of money. It cannot be. Because people will always not hear what we are saying. You know, we talk about CETAs, we write articles, but we still get negative, being just lambasted after having spoken about the work that we're doing. Because we need to sort of have this as a mantra, repeatedly spoken about the work that we're doing in the ecosystem. Need for collaboration, it's important as we transition. Business already have these nice solutions, by the way. You speak to them, they talk to you about things like your blockchain and stuff like that. We do have LMIS that's being developed by MICT SETA. We need to look at that and say, are we being forward-looking? SETA said we're going to have this integrated system. Do we need to focus on that investment? In line with the transition as outlined in the white paper? I don't know. DTGs are here. They will let us know. I don't know. But I'm looking at this huge investment. I'm saying, should this investment be in the TVET sector because TVET is becoming bigger? Should we be having this investment in the SETA? I don't know. But I know that we do have this project that is looking at mainstreaming or streamlining SETA systems. Your fragmentation that was presented yesterday and today, to say the windows, maybe we need to look at having windows at the same time, we need to be looking at similar stipends and stuff like that. So we're hoping that with this LMIS that the mixed SETA is developing for SETAs, we will then get better in terms of addressing fragmentation. But I think the question that I'm posing to the leadership of the system is whether are we on the right path? Yes, we are in terms of addressing, but what's the priority? Is the priority TVET access in line with SETAs that may shrink if you look at the white paper? I don't know. The skills as an economic lever, skills development is key to stabilizing the economy, as we know, and driving innovation, productivity, and inclusivity. So, for the future ready skills landscape, we're now talking about the Digital Skills Foundation. We should then be, and I've spoken about it, the introduction and the understanding, but for me, leadership embracing your AI literacy programs, leadership embracing your virtual reality, which is amazing. We have got one of the panelists from Business Today in the forest. So what we did there, we developed a VR, and that then gave learners access to a farm, or if you like, forest, while they're in class. And those are the things that we really should be looking at, the technologies. We didn't have need learners to actually go to the forest. We brought the forest to the learners through technology. So these are the things that we need to be looking at. Green skills importance, yes. The Green Skills, your Just Skills department has got a desk. We're working closely with NBI. And the energy and water SETA, because it's their space, they are leading us as SETAs in that particular space to support renewable energy, energy efficiency, circular production models. For an example, in the circular production models, what the innovation that we have in our sector, and there's many, okay, because we're talking about your recycling, for an example, okay, there could be a lot more. Your off-cut from your textiles. We have got a technology that then processes that into your bricks that you can then use. Young people can use that in transformation. They can use that in interior decoration, etc., etc. So there are a lot of opportunities that are actually embedded in the innovation space that we should then be exploring as SETAs. But we also are proud as SETAs, we've got theater that has led and it is leading in the green skills economy. They have launched the hydrogen economy. And we know that the Deputy President, Hydrogen Economy Project, Deputy President a week or so ago also launched a 100M worth of a project that's going to be looking at green hydrogen. The CEO of Chieta, Dr. Pile, has done research to look at the possible number of jobs that are going to come out of that project. And it is quite promising, and we're quite excited about it. And that is, again, work that we're doing around SETAs. And here I'm talking about mega projects that we are responding to from a integrated approach as SETAs and collaboration. Industry-specific expertise, we need to be closer. Manufacturers, your MER-SETA, your FPM-SETA, your food bev, your manufacturing SETA, we need to understand what is a lean manufacturing. We need to understand what is JIT. Those type of concepts in manufacturing platforms, factories, we need to understand. What is your manufacturing concern? That's the language that you find in industry, but we want the TVET lecturers to be equipped with that language as well, so that they can impart that in class and not wait to take learners to the factories. And that is the part of the expansion we need to be preparing. So just under the tech-ready skills, we know that, I think from Busa yesterday, okay, the CEO of Busa, Ntate Mata, spoke about technology-related roles as being the fastest growing jobs in percentage terms. And indeed, when we're looking at the World Economic Forum report, survey of 2024, it confirms that is the fastest growing economy. And he mentioned something like, it is fast now, it will be faster even in the future. And made an example of a typewriter, from typewriter to laptop, we've got iPads, etc., etc. So, and that is now an economy that we cannot debate whether it should be funded or not. It's clear that it's an economy that is here and that needs to be funded. And we then need to understand your mega data. As we transition, we need to understand the dynamics within the metadata management, because we need to look at the integration of university, TVET, CET, NSF, if SETAs are still there, even SETAs. But we should be able to draw reports that then talk to the PCS system for analysis, for research purposes, and for decision making. And that's where metadata comprehension becomes important. As we continue, the automation is expected to drive and change in the way people do things. And we know that. We used to have typewriter, we no longer have a typewriter. The way we do things have changed. Okay, so that's the simple example that I can actually talk about. When you look at the green transition, climate change adaptation is expected to be the third largest contributor to the net growth. And by 2030, it's estimated that it will contribute to an additional of 5 million net jobs, but that's a global figure, okay? We're getting this from World Economic Forum. I think for me, this is just more indicative and helps us to sort of plan and prepare and engage and strategize to say, where do we do most investment in terms of the reform and restructuring and redesign of the system? We should look at the broadening of digital access in our, especially TVET colleges, but also universities. I think it's the DM or minister passionately speaks about access should not be physical structure. We should look at access that is driven by technology. Why can't we have learners that are studying online learning? Because it's one of the ways in which learners can access university. We've got a big issue of universities where there's a challenge of access and accommodation. That could then be circumvented by the development of a solution that could then allow online and virtual studying comfortably. Advancements in technologies, particularly the World Economic Forum argues that AI, advancement in technologies, particularly AI and information processing, it's around 86%. If you look at the speed with which it sort of works based on the built-in algorithms on your AI solutions. So it is quite high just in terms of speeds. We've got speed. When you look at the robots, when you go to one of our factories, tissue making factory, we have got robots that are actually working there. But what we then did, so that we don't lose human beings, we then capacitated them to be able to work alongside the robots, but as technicians to support the robots, and also to be able to repair the robots. So we should be able to say, how do we bring human element and technology together so that we still have our people employed? And that's where we talk about these trends are expected to have divergent effect on jobs, all right? So we still have your robots or your technology, but we still have human capacity. Industry as co-creator, we heard this, it came through yesterday, that industry wants to be a co-creator. I think micro-credentials and credentialing is important, and I'm thinking of VGN now. To say, when we had a summit last year with Deputy Minister Mimi Kondwe, Honorable Mimi Kondwe, that concept came out quite strong during the deliberations, where business was saying, we need your support, QC2O. We don't need to wait or to always implement long-term projects. we need to have business-based or continuous training programs that are then supported by QCTO. And I think we may need to understand how QCTO can then assist business in that sense. So that, because if you look at the duration for qualification development or the migration to occupationally directed programs, it's not 6 months. It takes much longer. So in the interim, how do we then sustain business? Because we want business to actually be able to move. All right, so those are the discussions that say while we are talking about embracing technology, digitalization, AI solutions, how do we then make sure that we've got initiatives that are then bridging the gaps while we're waiting for your formal qualification to be registered and to be available. Co-investment, I spoke about the Quadro-Pro yesterday principle, where we say it's important to encourage our businesses to then do 50-50. Even if a business already has a technology that we need, we don't need to duplicate that. But we then need to engage and say, how do we then make sure our learners have got access? To what extent can they have access? So engage so that we can then be able to invest in other things that would assist us to grow and learners to be able to be trained. So we need to be able to have the ability to then scale with intent to then make a difference. Shared ownership and accountability. Industry says they do want to have that shared ownership, and that's fine. But industry must then advise what is that they have that's accessible to the PCS system, so that there could then be partnership that is clearly outlined for support. When we look at inclusion as a driver of economic competitiveness, we talk about strategic economic inclusion. It is an imperative that expands talent pipeline across diverse groups. So we really need to be able to look at that in that way. And we look at it as well, inclusion as something that could enhance innovation and resilience, where we have got the acknowledgement of diverse participation to boost innovation, problem solving, and workplace resilience. Okay. Equitable access to training, to provide equitable access to advanced training and modern equipment is crucial for competitiveness. And we spoke about being able to still have your machine and machine learning practices, but also bringing human learning as well, so that we still have diversity in the workplace that we then embrace. Support for employment progression through the mechanisms that will then help with the transition for education employment. As I move towards the end, diversity, equity, and inclusion. In terms of the World Economic Forum, the Future of Jobs survey finds increased emphasis by employers on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, connected to a growing perception of its potential to increase talent availability. In terms of the employee demographics, women are considered the highest priority group for surveyed employers' diversity, equity, and inclusion programs worldwide, with 76% of respondents anticipating a focus of their measures on this group. But we also include the study included workers with disability, as well as the Gen Z youth, who are completely different in mindset. Very, very different in mindset. So technology can then assist us in understanding their expectations. What may seem simple to us in terms of training might actually be boring to them. So getting them involved in these design processes and thinking processes, consultation processes, youth then becomes super important. What are our skills challenges in South Africa? training employment gaps, where we know that there's large gaps between training outcomes and actual jobs. So we spoke at length about that. You say, I mean, there was an example of someone that said yesterday, we do have business commitment. The problem is that we cannot be giving people that are with skills that are irrelevant to our operations. So we need to be able to work quite closer with business so that we produce for them. And I'm not so sure whether this becomes another model that is spoken about elsewhere, to say we need to now work within industry so that as we work, then there's a possible absorption. But what is the long-term effect of that? So that model, we need to look at it with critical eyes as well, all models, and be able to, at the end, find the middle ground that will then work not for the PCS system only, but for our rural communities, for our township communities, and for business, including labor. Tech adoption, there's centers that still lack modern tools and digital readiness. For an example, the issue of access. We know that beginning of the year we'll see universities striking, no accommodation and all of that. Have we fully exhausted technology to assist with access? Perhaps not. And maybe there lies an opportunity for us to look at that. And I'm literally stealing that from the minister's mouth, where he talks about access, in two ways. One is through tech, infrastructure, and another one is through your physical brick and mortar. Institutional fragmentation, where we, of course, know we have got that issue of collaboration between skills bodies that then remain weak. We need to reinforce the engagements, our engagements and deliberations with business. All of us must be willing partners. When meetings are called, let's all attend. Let's see how we can find a good resolve. This sits in the hands squarely of our department and the leadership therein. Labor market mismatch, that is another challenge, with a different argument that I might also have from my angle, but it is also true from another angle that there is that labor mismatch. Mismatch is normally defined in different ways, but I'm not going to get into that because it's a different presentation on its own. So TVET transformation imperative, we need to look at modernization of TVET structure. We need to look at curriculum and skills alignment and modernization of that and enhancement, building technology in the curriculum. We need to look at linking value chain for outcomes, where we're talking about policy, strategy, planning, agile M&E of the work that we do, but also building marketing. As we're moving towards that, we then need to make sure TVET colleges do not become like cities where there's a lot of lambasting and all of that. As the results come out, we're able to communicate and let the market knows exactly what's happening. So WorldSkills SA, for us, it then signifies or is an example of excellence in aligning TVET elements to foster artisan development and future-ready skills. We're here because they're giving us the opportunity to, one, talk more of the importance of artisan development in the TVET space and how we then need to move forward in terms of supporting that. From industry, what we believe should then be commitments. One is apprenticeship and learnership expansion. As we expand, can we do it together with industry? Because we are expanding it for them to go where? And we're not saying industry is the only exit, but we're saying it's a possible exit. And it's a possible partner for them to give us the latest trends in the market, emerging skills that we need to be focusing and investing in. So exits, we know they can do entrepreneurship, but they can also do be mentored by big business so that we don't just have entrepreneurs that are going to fail tomorrow. Partnerships within TVET colleges, that's another way. Formal partnership between industry and TVET colleges is very, very important. I've spoken about that. Core funding, trades and technologies, we've got to look at that. What technologies do you have on your plant? How, to what extent can we collaborate and use that together, partner on that, and then for us to be able to have learners that are actually exposed to industry operations, but also not only more learners, including our lecturers. Access to modern equipment. We need industry to work with us. So that when we invest on what works, not what we think will actually work. All right. How do we bridge this agency for action? I think we are talking about it, but we will always be led by our DGs in terms of when do we have meetings for what actions and for what meetings and all of that. Scaling successful programs, again, in partnership with our leadership, we'll then look at which programs are scaled up. We do have quite a number of projects that are coming in from CETA's collaboration. Yeah, so those are going to be projects that we will also align our DDGs on. Strengthening partnerships, that is something that we should continue doing. And from dialogue to implementation, so let's talk but also implement. Key actions going forward: strengthen policy support for future ready skills, invest in innovation, strengthen multi-stakeholder collaboration, and then, I'm finishing, and then promote lifelong learning. Just my last 2 slides, I felt that this was very important to say what are CETAs, because there's a lot of confusion in the market. A levy goes to the SARS. SARS then takes this 1% levy, and what then happens to that levy? 2% remains in SARS for administration. And then we give 18% to NSF, National Skills Fund, is sitting with 18% of that levy. That should be coming to CETAs, goes to NSF. So please, when we apply to NSF, may we be assisted, because that's the money that comes from us to you, for you to address other priorities. But it's not like it's money that's coming elsewhere. When we did the calculations yesterday, Mr. Neka, how much was it that we put to NSF per year? Around 3 to 4 billion. That is coming from CETAs annually. If you take 20%, 18% of 20%, you can do the math. That's what then goes to NSF. 20% of 18% of 20 billion went to NSF. And we do apply to NSF because we do have small CETAs that don't even have $1 billion that NSF has as a result of the partnership and the centralized model of PSET. So you'd find that I will apply because I only have 219 million for discretionary grant, and I've got 500 million worth of applications. So I need to find money for my stakeholders, particularly because these are in the township and in the rural communities. Everybody is making a table from forestry, everyone is making shoes. So that is the black economy that we need to support, and it's very strategic. So, and then we've got admin that is 10%, QC2O that's 0.5%, which we should maybe, through the discussions, we'll look at it. And I think there's a lot of work that's going to QC2O, and maybe that 0.5 needs to be re-looked at. and the mandatory grant. So I thought this is important so that we understand what is the relationship between CETA, SARS, NSF, QC2O, and how CETAs are then supporting these entities. Now, the last slide is on 21 CETAs. You'll find these 21 CETAs, Peace CETA, FPNM CETA, I'm not so sure Food Bev, but CATH CETA, and Energy and Water applying to NSF to be funded. Correctly so, because based on the income across CETAs, they are right at the lowest. Top, lowest income CETAs, receiving CETAs in the system. But we also need to survive. So when we go to NSF, we need to be assisted by NSF because it's money that we have planted there, that our industries have planted there. But if NSF can assist me as FPNM CETA, they must then assist my industries. So we need to have that agreement and that deliberation and that, in principle, factual agreement that that will then happen. Because their money is sitting there and they need to be assisted. Right, that was my last slide. Program Director, thanks for the patience and the sterling job that you're doing. My last point is to just really say that CATH CETA is one of the CETAs that has really made us proud. They invested 100 million into the training of 100 learners across the country. I hope I'm correct about the number. And that program has completed, and I think 95%, they partnered with McDonald's, South Africa. 95% of those young people have been employed nationwide, and I think it's a big deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry. Be careful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yende, for that thought-provoking presentation. I just realized as I stood next to you that I didn't brief you, that if I stand, it means that you're left with 5 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, for those speakers that will be coming through, please do note that, no pressure. It just means that let's start wrapping up a bit. We are still within time, I must confirm, understanding that we started at 9:30. So as it stands, let us then take a 15-minute break. I'm looking at my time, it's almost 11:50. So can we agree on a 15-minute break and come back at 12:05? 12:05 sharp, kindly, so that we can continue with the program. I would really appreciate if you can be here promptly. Thank you so much. joined by Ms. Pamela Naidu, Director, Forestry and Agricultural Training Organization. Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Vijayan Naidu, who's the Chief Executive Officer, Quality Council for Trade and Occupations. Dr. Thabo Mashongwane, Chief Executive Officer, MQA. Mr. Babsi Nhlapo, National Education Secretary, COSATU. Mr. Dev Modley, National Chairperson, SA Motor Body Repairers Association, and owner of Fitness Panel Beaters. Dr. Leon Rawls, who's the founder of South African Broadband Network Alliance. I note panelists have just made their way to the stage, but it does seem like we're missing a couple of panel members. If I called your name, kindly make your way to the stage. Thank you, sir. Is there someone else that you're missing?
Leon. Yeah,
Leon Rose.
I think you went to the party.
I'm the yellow. Come, while we still mic the panel members, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, you might.
I'm hoping that this time also allows the crew from outside to make their way back to the venue. I requested the organizers to assist me in that regard. Thank you in advance. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it does look like we have one panel member that has not joined us. I think in the interest of time, Chairperson, I'm going to ask that we start with the engagements, and then the member can make their way to the stage as soon as they come into the House. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause would be appreciated. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think firstly, maybe let me greet. It's afternoon now, so good afternoon to everyone in the audience, and I'll stand on the same protocols that have been observed before. Also, let me greet my panelists, and I'm looking forward to really a robust conversation around innovation, bridging the gap between what is available in tech, in innovation, to the workplace, and to the world of learning. My name is Busiso Dladla. I am standing in for Mr. Litlogonolo Masuga, who is our administrator. And just to touch on a few things around the panel 6, it's essentially we're discussing the issue around building a future-ready skills through strong apprenticeships and the dual training system that everyone is talking about throughout all the sessions that we've been having. In essence, post-school education and training is standing at a pivotal moment right now, where technology is reshaping our economies and also reshaping the world of work. We need to also make sure that our skills development ecosystem is capable of preparing our youth for this rapidly changing world. Apprenticeships is an easy model to adopt, in particular to the fact that it is a skill that aligns between technical, non-technical, and now we also need to incorporate what happens in the world of technology. We've seen a constant conversation around the mismatch between what is available at colleges, what is available at workplaces. Look at the advancement of technology. When we talk innovation, we're looking at the plight of the country. We talk about the issues with energy. We're saying innovation is solar power, right? But is actually the putting up of your solar panel onto a roof a skill worth calling innovation, or is it a solution to what we're currently faced with? So these are the kind of conversations we need to be having, especially with the broad stakeholder base that we have here. Our panel, ladies and gentlemen, brings a world of skills from various avenues and depending on the roles that you are sitting in and the structures that we are part of. I will then just formally introduce Ms. Pamela Naidu, who is the Director for the Forestry and Agricultural Training Organization. I also have Mr. Babsin Tlapo, who's the National Education Secretary for the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU. I also have Dr. Leon Rawls, the founder for the South African Broadband Network Alliance. And I've got Mr. Vijay Naidu, the CEO of the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, the QCTO. And last but not least that side, it's Dr. Thabo Mashongwane, the CEO of the Mining Qualifications Authority, the MQA. Mr. Naidu, I have to say that Pamela was very clear to say there's no relation. It's just the surname Naidu that is familiar. Perhaps maybe let me ask the panel just briefly one question. We'll just to warm up the conversation, then I'll ask each of you a specific question related to the industries that you are in. Firstly, as the economies and technologies evolve rapidly, what future skills should South Africa prioritize to ensure that its workplace remains competitive and adaptable? What are the immediate priorities we should focus on, the now, and what is readily available for implementation? Pam, let me start with you, and then we'll go down the road.
Thank you, panel chair. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that question, Chair. I think for us in the forestry industry, one of the important evolving issues is the fact that technology is advancing. And we in forestry have been modernizing and mechanizing for quite a few years now. So for us, the important critical skills that we're looking at in our industry is things like machine operators. So we've got silviculture machine operators, we've got harvesting machine operators that are very critical to technological advancements. With modernization, you have various companies coming out with implements or attachments to a tractor that requires various modernized training. So we are looking at those kind of initiatives. Together with that, we also have harvester operators, and the machines that we use are very expensive. So the employees that are trained on those machines can either break or make forestry or contracting companies. So it's important to give them the correct skills, and companies are moving towards what we're calling the next gen operators in harvesting. You also see that in terms of forestries, there's lots of the usage of drone technology when it comes to supplying forestry management with aerial data, be it for counting of trees, be it for monitoring of trees, or for looking at illegal logs. So these are the kind of technology and skills that's driving our industry. We're also looking forward to new things like the use of drones in chemical spraying for contractors, together with possibly in the near future, the use of drones for fire management as well.
Yeah. So in essence, more your data driven solutions. On your side, can I get your initial insights around our future-ready skills?
Thanks. For us, the current skills deficiencies should look at addressing our current problems. And sometimes we don't have to really rethink our current problems. I mean, in the main, part of our current problems is speaking about solar technology and not addressing the issue about where does the solar technology come from. So it should be much more manufacturing than the end usage of the solar technology. So those are key things. We've got the problem around the rainwater harvesting. We are a water scarce country, and yet we've got too much water that flows out of different streams, river streams, but we don't have the technology to harvest those particular, that particular water. So I think we need to look at those things around water harvesting so that we can make maximum usage of the current water that we have, or we lose when we've got too much rainfall and we do not have proper irrigation systems for that particular water management system. We should also be looking at the current problems in farming, the problems of disease control. We've seen the problem of foot and mouth disease coming through. And the anomaly with that particular problem is that we had to wait for exports from other countries as opposed to having our own vaccines. We know that we were told that Onderstepoort has already completed the vaccine manufacturing. But we needed the vaccine even before the eruption of the foot and mouth disease. So those are particular things that we need to be talking about. We also need to ensure that all our skills development processes are linked to manufacturing. For instance, there's a great hype about EVs. The question about taking EV cars from China. But the problem that we should be confronting ourselves is that if we import from China, what's going to happen to the Eastern Cape? What's going to happen to Pretoria? The centers of car assembly plants. And if we don't have a clear solution to those problems, we will import the EVs. But what's going to happen to the people that were working on the car assembly plants? We know that that is going to be one of the key problems. We also have a problem about what kind of democratic systems can we design? Can we really take up the bully-based Yankee systems, or can we develop our own cultural-based democratic systems? Because these skills must go on to manufacturing, but they must also go into services. And the greater political economy also needs particular skills as to how we relate to the current problems and even the future problems. We know how bully-based techniques have now created problems in the world, and we are now going to be confronted with a big problem of energy supply, energy security. So those are particular problems. The one thing I want to warn up front is that when we speak about skills development, we should not be taken up by just international talk of 4IR and the whole range of highly developed technical programs. Because we can talk about 4IR, but we do not have enough railroad in our rural communities. And that's first industrial revolution. We don't have enough electricity. We don't have enough computers for public usage. We don't have enough internet. Now, it's one thing to focus on 4IR, but remember that the technologies we're going to use in 4IR are not technologies that we have developed. So meaning manufacturing, if it's not a key concern of us now, and we are all caught up with these new phenomena, we can be sitting with a problem going forward. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Babontlap. I think when we come to the individual questions, I'm going to unpack this issue that you are just raising now. But the sense that I'm getting is that you're basically saying that before we even look at jumping into the future, let's start to fix the base, essentially. Why are we talking 4IR when the first, second, and third have not adequately been addressed in the country? And the plight for emphasis to be placed back on manufacturing. Yes, it's good and well to install solar panels, but who's manufacturing the solar panels? So that industrialization needs to be a key component of the skills revolution as well, in as much as we're looking into the future. Dr. Leon, we are not saying that we are not a fan of technology because you are in the technology space. But let me get insights from yourself, from someone who's an innovator and someone who is really a key driver in that space.
I think when we're talking about moving into the future, how far into the future? Right now we're talking fourth industrial revolution, which is talking AI, drones. That's nothing. The fifth industrial revolution gets a little bit more interesting because now you're talking about 5D printing instead of 3D printing. You're talking about the migration from semiconductor processing to diamond processing. Now that means something, a totally different future. For example, you can print a human being's heart and transplant it and have robots transplanting it in the fifth industrial revolution. With 5D printing, you can print a steak and cook it. Now we can think those things are far-fetched. If you've eaten McDonald's, yeah, what do you think it's made of? If you've eaten Pronutro, what do you think what you can do with it when you process it? Got all the proteins you need. Agriculture thrown out, don't need food anymore. They're already playing around with protein processing and those things. But now the sixth industrial revolution, we're talking about space travel. We're talking about resurrection theory. By the way, it's not something that is an outside phenomenon that you can throw. Already in Japan, if you go and do your research and you read up about it, they've already resurrected a fish that was extinct years ago. So how far into the future are we talking about? Are we talking into the future that is now? Because the future we're living in today is someone's future. Someone saw this future years back. But if you look at the future that we are in right now, it's full of paras. And the children that you're training in TVET are just educated paras. I know you call paras those children in the street, exactly that. That's what I'm talking about. What is a para? It's a short for parasite. People that are economically irrelevant at this space of time, at the way in which we are producing things today, not tomorrow. And they don't fit in because we're teaching them the wrong things. That's the reality. That's the reality. Today, the first thing that we need to do, we need children to be connected to the internet. If you go out and you speak to kids, you go at home, you left a 5-year-old or 4-year-old, give them your phone and see what they'll do. They'll ask you questions that you think you'll expect someone that is in varsity to ask you a question. Things now at their young age, in their young minds, that are beyond anything. It's happening already. You can't do anything about it. These kids are sitting at home. You're not in the TV teaching them a simple thing to get a driver's license so that when they leave and they don't get a job, they get a motorbike and go and do delivery of pizzas. We're not teaching them basic things like that. Right now, we are talking about the economies being decolonized. Right now, as we speak, the war with Iran and America and China has got absolutely nothing to do with anything else. No religion, no nothing. It's all about the decoupling of economies, moving from one economy into another. That's exactly what happened with the gold standard. And we have to change as human beings on how we manufacture and how we do things. I want to give you just one thing as South Africa. Every technology, including you want to go to space, you want to operate a phone or anything, it depends on one thing and one thing only, power. Which right now is not solar, is nothing else, but it's lithium, batteries. Your largest deposits of lithium and CF2 that is used to manufacture batteries is found from Northwest, Bloemfontein, all the way up from Northern Cape, Bloemfontein, Northwest, and a little bit in Zimbabwe, in this country. So why aren't we leading? Why are we focusing on other things? Like you've correctly said, why aren't we processing and making those lithium batteries here? You go here to the University of Natal, UKZN, go and look at their research. They've built a nuclear power station that's the size of an RDP house that can power the whole of Durban. There are so many innovations and so many things that you find out there that we've done in South Africa. We're talking about the scarce water. The membrane that is used for water dissemination, otherwise taking water from the ocean and making it drinkable, was invented in South Africa. It's a South African thing. So the skills that we are focusing on right now are totally wrong, and we're educating and producing 30,000 educated paras. We need to change. We're talking about the skills revolution, but are we willing to change? When you say you're talking about the skills revolution, it means that do away with TVET colleges and varsities and everything. They're totally useless in the future, which means they are of less use to the people there. Dr. Ye was presenting and saying that we need to focus more on self-educated workforce. I'm a businessman. I've tried employing people from UKZN universities, they're useless. I've tried technicons, universities, they're useless. I'd rather have from TVET colleges because they don't come with everything else. I have AI that I use, that I build in-house, that already takes care of the thinking and everything and does it better. I want skills, people that can jump up a ladder, go install a radio for me, install fiber, splice it, and that's it. It's a simple thing. So those are the things that we should be focusing on, Chair. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Dr. Leon, for those strong sentiments. I'm a bit worried because services sector, one of the industries we look after is the funeral industry. So if we're talking about resurrection, it's going to be a very difficult conversation to have. But the primary message that you are bringing across the table is about relevancy. Relevancy of the skills that we are developing, relevancy of the qualifications we are using, and relevancy of the time that we are in as a country, and also the participants of the skills revolution. How do we then bridge that gap? But it's a conversation I'm going to bring you in after we've just done our first round. Mr. Naidu, on your side, what are you picking up as the key touch points and reflection points with regards to innovation and how we are moving as a country and as an institution, I suppose?
Thank you very much, Chair. And yeah, I'm certainly not going to venture into the fifth and the sixth year. I think what we have to focus on is, our current cohort of learners, and with all due respect to what my colleague here has articulated very well, is how do we create the potential within the learners that we currently have to migrate into these kind of, the scenario that was just painted. So I think we have to kind of admit that we have a very weak pipeline of training, from very poor schooling coming through all the way up, and so we got to take the students that we have and try the best that we have with them. But to answer the question more directly, it's almost how do we future-proof the training that we provide. So, we're talking about the 30,000 artisans, and yes, we are turning out, those artisans in terms of electricians, fitters, etc. But for them to be able to be sustainable going forward, as was articulated into what lies ahead, they need some critical skills. So just can't be a trade. We have to infuse into this digital fluency across all the trades and whatever we offer at whichever institution. We also have to start to embed in these qualifications the elements of green and sustainable production practices. And I think that aligns with whether you're electrical, do you understand solar? Do you understand energy saving mechanisms? If you're in the water industry, it's what Babsi was talking about in terms of the wastage, etc. More than that, we need systems thinking. You can't be narrowly focused. You may be just in a trade, but you need to start to get broader thinking. Obviously, the issue of problem solving, adaptability, and analytics are big issues if we want to future-proof our learners. And these are not add-ons. We have to make them and build them into the qualifications that we're currently producing. Obviously, AI is the big thing. But for me, for where we are now, these qualifications have to be occupationally grounded. That means they have to be linked to the real workplace, real needs of society, real problems that we need solved. And the big ask, obviously, from QCTO and the service providers like our TVET colleges, etc., is that we need to produce candidates that are work-ready, and not, as my colleague here says, they cannot do the job. We need to ensure that they are work-ready.
Yeah. You bring in a very interesting concept now around qualifications that also look into the principles of ESG, which is now the buzz in terms of where we are going. You see a lot of professions that are looking at your environmental sustainability goals as such. So it would be very interesting to to get a synopsis, I suppose, the different research facilities that we have, to look into what qualifications are easily adaptable to those principles, and which ones would really need to have deeper conversations around that space. But I'm going to ask you to unpack it a bit further when I come back to you as well. Dr. Mashongwane, on your side, especially being in the space of mining as well, it seems to be a very relevant discussion to have in that space, looking at the issues of, well, health and safety is a big issue, the volumes that are moving in terms of that industry. Dr. Leon speaks about the lithium pipeline that we have in the country. So it's very interesting you are seeing, especially in that environment of that you are currently exposed in.
No, thank you very much, and thanks to my panelist members. I'm just going to be adding on to what they said, but with a specific focus into mining, because if we're all to go broad, sometimes we can then be lost in the issues. So, if you were to look into mining, like Dr. Leon said, and all other colleagues, mining remains a bedrock for our and any other revolution, just like it happened previously. I mean, if you were to look into issues, every revolution will then, to a great extent, build upon the foundation laid by the previous revolution. And this is how advancement happens. Of course, lately we can then see a serious quantum leap from the third IR to the fourth one, to an extent that one would think that there's no connection. There is connection, because you will not have the other if you do not have the baseline in terms of energy and all other issues that are related to it. We also need to be saying we can't just be consumers of technologies coming elsewhere, because of course other countries are more advanced than where we are at now. I take it, if we are to be, prepare the workforce, we need also to take into consideration our context, to say, like my comrade Babsi said, we need to look at the realities of South Africa to say, as much as there are disparities in terms of advancement of technologies, but in the main, some of our communities are not yet ready, and therefore we still need to build them up. Just like in our mining space, South African mining is not like other countries. Of course, we have a vast experience of mining in this country, but in the main, we were manually driven. Our labor force manually driven. So this is our baseline. We had to then start from there to say, if we are to move them into the future revolutions, what is it that we can do? We cannot just jump them. We really need to then give the baselines. That's why something like International Literacy Day are still very relevant to us as South Africa. And that's why our focus in the mining space has been, what are we going to do with this workforce? Therefore, let's then provide them with basic literacy and numeracy programs. We have now done that. They are now in a position to then move into digital literacy for us to ensure that we secure their jobs and also try and assist them for their own personal social livelihood. That is the elementary level. But if we're to then move into intermediary and advanced level, where we now have semi-skilled workforce as well as advanced workforce, we then begin to say the new entrants, how then do we bridge the gap, upskill and reskill them while they are there? Because they already have something, whether they come from TVET's university, they are somewhere, they have some embedded kind of understanding of technology. So we then have to upskill, but we can't just start with the end product. We then need to say, if we are to future-proof the workforce, who are the drivers behind this? These are the institutions, these are the educators, the lecturers. Are they at the right levels of imparting the relevant knowledge? Sometimes we would want to expect the students to be excellent, but then forgetting that the very educators are probably backward in terms of understanding of this technology. That's why for us, we're looking at the issues in relation to in the mining space. Our mines are quite deep and of course also very highly dangerous, as we can see with the Ikapa mine incident. So robotics as well as remote operations are key for us in the mining space. Often than not, people think that mining has everything to do with other minerals. No, mining has everything to do. Even with this building, we would not have been here had it not been, of course, of mining. The steels that you see, the walls that you see, everything here. So people think mining is too far away. No, hence the very wars that are there, because it's a fight for specific minerals. So remote operations for us in South Africa becomes key. We can still be mining gold, but the problem is too deep and too dangerous. And therefore, the only way to reach that gold is if we're to send robots and employ other machine, other tactics in terms of for IR. We need to be looking at digitization, automation in the space to say the current technicians, the current artisans, how then do we move them from with their current skills and move them there? So that's why as MQA we also invest over and above what the department is doing with NGAP. We have our own specific programs to say, let us then train and retrain the workforce in the TVET space as well as university in relation to the future skills. I can go on. These are some of the examples. Of course, the colleagues mentioned data analytics, data scientists, and the green-related kind of skills. It's just a variety of, a myriad of all of these skills that must be taken into consideration. But for me, it's a question of how then do we prepare the institutions and the workforce in the institution to then deliver the goods in terms of a well-equipped graduate and workforce in the mining space. Thanks.
Okay. And what is actually quite interesting is that almost all of you are speaking towards the same issue of building the base before we can move to the next levels. The issue of upskilling and reskilling becomes a factor, looking at the current as-is environment and working from there, moving forward. You raise a very interesting question, Dr. Thabo, in terms of what then do we do to the current institutions that we have now, and how do we then strengthen and broaden the delivery that is there to ensure that we've got quality supply of what would be coming out. While you still have the proverbial mic, I'd actually like you to respond to that question, to say now for the entire post-school education system or ecosystem, as I've been hearing the word being thrown around over the last couple of engagements I've been in, what do we do to actually strengthen the PSET system to ensure that the correct technical skills are there, the correct experiences and advancement towards technology? It doesn't help to teach welding using a manual welder when in industry you're actually now remote operating a welding machine. How do we then get to capacitate and facilitate what is in our industry, in our industries, yes, in terms of PSET? Also, the element you're raising about the training the trainer elements as well. How do we incorporate that into our TVET colleges, especially in the concept of the artisanal training?
Yeah. Yeah. Just to add into your question, what I like about your initial question is the word prioritize. As South Africans, we have too many challenges. And sometimes we are eager to try and solve all problems at the same time because of many other pressures, including political pressures and expectations from everyone. You know, what Dr. Leon said, we need to be saying, companies and business people like him, how then do we begin to partner with him to expose our lecturers, you know, to what he already knows and what he can, of course, do, and thereby going back to the institutions. In other words, we expose our lecturers, but secondly, how then do we also rope expertise such as this back into our institutions? So as institutions then becomes community centers where great minds and people who already have walked the journey come back and share ideas with the learners as well as the institutions, and break the silo mentality of, say, because you are not a professor, you will not be able to do this. You may be a professor, but unfortunately, you may not necessarily have all the answers in terms of the next revolution. Secondly, why don't we also prioritize partnering with countries that are already advanced in these issues? So as we then send our lecturers, of course sending students, it's a good idea, but I think there will be better investment if you send a person who will come back and impact the many people, unlike just one person who will come for himself. So we really need to prioritize our educators, our institutions. The sitters must, like it's been said, right now we move into occupational qualifications. Let's then isolate those and really drive our resources and not want our resources to be everywhere, because we will not be able to move forward. I think that's one way where we can start in terms of if we are to make an impact. And we will, of course, not be able to cover every scope, but can we at least be expert in 5 things more than generalizing 100 things?
Yeah. So essentially having a funnel type approach. We look at the majority and decide as a collective in terms of what exactly are we prioritizing in the immediate, so that we can, as you mentioned, be experts in those particular fields and take it forward. It then brings you in, Mr. Naidu, in terms of then how do we support this drive for being experts, but from a curriculum base now. In terms of the co-designing of curriculum, I suppose it would be a relevant concept, especially for those that are training and those that are receiving and those that would have to receive that skill at the end. So a co-designing principle in a similar fashion as how we are now doing dual education and training would be a concept that I suppose would be of interest for you as well. The issues around international benchmarking, as Dr. Tabo is speaking to, when it comes to curriculum design, how would that then also improve on the outcomes that we want to achieve? And perhaps you can also give us some insights of what the QCTO is currently doing to address the skills gap mismatch. Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I mean, that is the very essence for the existence of the QCTO, to develop the qualifications that are relevant to industry. Let me just, and it's not because my colleague is sitting on my left-hand side here, but we've been working with the Mining Qualifications Authority, as an example, very closely, and with the whole mining industry. And we've taken all of their old qualifications, which was, I think it was a blasting certificate and the like. I think it's over 60 of them. And together with industry, we've actually reconfigured them into being up-to-date skills programs that the people working in these areas would be skilled with. So the issue of industry, QCTO has a statement. We say we develop qualifications for industry by industry. So industry is involved at all the stages of our qualifications and development, from the inception right down to even the final point, which is the assessment and the certification. And that's the model that we build on. I think I must highlight this, however. The challenge that we have is we say we talk to industry, But because industry is not well organized in this country, in fact, our whole economy is not very well organized. Our industry, you could talk to a particular group and think you're addressing the industry. Only once the qualification has been approved, you'll get another arm of industry coming up and saying, we were not consulted. So we do not have a coordinated market economy in South Africa, which unfortunately, the repercussions of which we find in the current discussions and discourses. I think I want to touch on the issue of upskilling and reskilling, which is what QCTO takes very seriously. And so we have started to develop skills programs. And when we talk about skills programs, they are elementary as entry, but we also have them higher up on the national qualifications framework for the purposes of reskilling and upskilling the current workforce into areas of technology. So it's like, how do you take an electrician and make that electrician green? So we have a particular skills program for that. How to take a plumber and make that plumber a green plumber by talking about water-saving technologies, etc. And so you don't have to start from scratch and try to train new learners. The existing workforce needs to be upskilled and reskilled. And we have skills programs that are credit-bearing. They're not just add-ons. And the model of qualifications that we have developed at QCTO is almost a plug-and-play model. So, it won't have to take us 5 years to develop a qualification. No. If industry is moving in a particular direction and comes and says, technology is demanding this, we just look at the modularization of our qualifications, say what's old, pull that out, develop what's new, plug that in, and we have an up-to-date relevant qualification. So gone are the days when you're going to have to wait 5 years before we can revamp a qualification. And that is what QCTO is doing. And again, we just cannot do that without industry involvement. But the point I made is that we need industry to come to the party in a united way so that we can advance this agenda.
Yeah, it's an interesting notion. I like the idea of the fact that the qualification development is now industry driven. So it's a change in what is out there in the landscape. Coming back to yourselves to saying that because we are moving in this particular direction, you also need to update in this particular direction. I know there's a very strong element around international benchmarking, where what is relevant here in the country should naturally be relevant across the globe as such. It brings you back now, Dr. Leon, in terms of we've unpacked what PCETA needs to do. We've unpacked what the qualifications authority also needs to do in terms of the relevance. Now, from your side, as I suppose a representative of business, this element of digital transformation and innovation as well, how do we make sure that in as much as we are moving as a country, moving forward, but we also guard against this concept of inequality and actually preventing or creating additional barriers than the ones we have now to access for the general public? How do we then also ensure that by opening up this innovative space that we are in, we are also then further strengthening and capacitating those that are in the training space, so that, as you mentioned earlier, we do not create these educated paras, as you mentioned. So what role would business, what role should business, in your opinion, play in this particular space? And how do we bring what is happening out there back into the training and development space and make sure that we create open access for all the general public, essentially? A similar concept as your open serve concept as well. Yeah.
No, I think that first thing that we need to understand, if you look at the most successful countries, the economy is driven by SMMEs. In South Africa, the economy is driven by a few. That's the first problem that we have. It's too monopolized. And that's why TVETs and everyone, we have the problem that we have. I want to bring this to today, the future of today, the fourth industrial revolution. Now, why, if I want to specialize in drones, why is there no college or TVET that specializes in drones? And when I say specializes in drones, you manufacture it. You custom build it for South African weather, for Durban, with its high salt content and moisture, to do a particular thing, to go out into the ocean and go look at all those ships and come back and be able to read and pick up that this ship has drugs. Why is there no TVET college that specializes in that? Why is that TVET college not linked to SMMEs that provide it with the raw material? Also, has SMMEs that actually sell those drones, support and maintain those drones? You have other SMMEs that are responsible for the air control of those drones and everything to it. One TVET college. No more funding problems. Because that drone, you own the IP to it. You sell it internationally, you will never have funding problems again. We're talking about innovation, let's innovate. We're talking about revolution, let's evolve, let's re-evolve. Why do we not have those specialities that are there? The president, in his first State of the Nation address, said we're going to build smart cities. I jumped up, I was sitting on the sofa on the couch. I jumped out and I said yes. In my mind, I was thinking that by now, TVET colleges, universities, everyone, they're the first people to go there. Their mind should be sparking. And saying, if we are going to develop smart cities, these are the jobs that will be created. These are the technologies, these are the opportunities that exist. Let's start specializing in AI, let's start doing all of those things. The problem in this country is that government and academia fears innovation. You fear innovation. Mark Shuttleworth, Ubuntu, 90% of the internet today is running off the operating system that was developed in South Africa. Elon Musk got the most low orbit satellites in space, comes from South Africa, left because we do not understand innovators. Our government policies, they don't support innovation. Whatever change you want to do, the policy is going to stop you. That's the reality, because we want to protect other things. But now I'm going to tell you what is going to happen, whether we like it or not. Look at Airbnb, look at Uber, look at everything. Got the biggest taxi industry. We've got the biggest taxi industry here. But Uber disabled the taxi industry. What is going to happen, whether we like it or not, is Africa has the highest median of young people, which means the future that we are talking about is for Africa. Africa, whether we like it or not, is going to be the economic and the powerhouse of the world because of the young people. Every one of us would be too dead by then to do anything. And those young people are growing up. They're not going to go to TVET. They're going to learn online. Every TVET college must have an online self-learning platform. NFSAS, MQAs, CETAs. You must have a program where you are encouraging those children that want to learn online through the same TVET college. The unions we need to push to say, let us get our 30-year-olds, 50-year-olds, and let's re-educate and re-empower our people. Exoskeletons, whether you like it or not, it's going to be. The doctor was also talking, cobotics, it's here, whether we like it or not. Let's adapt to those things. Just by developing smart cities, every South African will be employed. If we in the mining have to say we are protecting industry, no raw mineral will leave this country. It will be processed in this country. All the small towns, the trains, the railway stations, the train lines, let's build them so that they take everything to the ship, but it must be processed here. Why must I buy the shoe? It must be made in China when we could make shoes. Why must this t-shirt be made in China? We need to protect the industry so we protect everything. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm not surprised there's an applause as you are talking. I keep hearing amen and preach behind me, so I'm afraid to look back. But look, a fair point that you're raising is the fact that there is a fear for change, right? And a fear for adapting and changing the current. Because you remember, when you change something, it means you must change as well. Yes. So now if you're seen as the beacon of excellence, and now there's this disruptive influence, externally disruptive influence that's coming in to your environment, it means that you must adapt. I like the concept of, I'm going to link it to this element where you're saying, why is one TVET college not specializing in drone technology, for example. There's a program of centers of specializations which gives specialized skills within the different industries. But I want to also challenge the room and those that are activating the centers of specializations to think beyond the current structure of what a center of specialization is now and what it should be in the immediate. And the immediate is 3 months' time, because that's the rate of change of technology these days. Within the next 3 years, within the next 5 years, 10 years, etc. So the model as is, what is the best that it can become and deliver? Perhaps, you know, I was calling you Mr. Tlapo for formalities. So, from what the colleagues have been mentioning, clearly there's a need for change legislatively. And I'm going to pose this to you because in the beginning you also spoke about, as a country, where do we stand? Are we following the bullyism tactics that we are seeing that is happening now, hence the wars? Or do we become a more socialist country and economy? How do we manage that? So I think before I upset the lady behind me, let me take your comments on that. What must change legislatively? But confined to perhaps at a bigger scale, but also let's channel it to the Department of Higher Education and Training. What needs to change there so that the landscape can easily adapt to the current environment we're seeing now?
Thanks, sir. I agree with the sentiments that Dr. Leon is putting, except that I want to privately take him on the SMME notion. We go to WorldSkills competitions every year, and we get beaten by the Chinese and the Russians. And you know what economic model they follow. So I think that for me, central planning is key. But I just want to come to the 3 points as you want to confine me. The first one is we've done NSDS 3 evaluation studies. Dr. T will remember. And one of the things that those studies are telling us is that we're spending too much time and money training the unemployed, training to be better unemployed. We spend very little, very less on training those that are already on the production pipeline. And what that means is that we're leaving our companies in the lurch and we're not developing as we're developing our companies. So the first problem is addressing the issue of paid education and training leave to ensure that most of the people who are at the workplace get the opportunity to train. Because the skills development arena has become foreign to the people that it was supposed to serve, which is workers. So that's the first thing. And I'm going to challenge our colleagues, especially business, to really speak truth to power about their social ethics committee and say, when are we going to have paid education and training agreements that provide enough time for our employees to go and train without training the unemployed and then failing to even involve them in the production process? Because that's what we are currently doing, and that's one of the areas of serious pitfall with our system. The second thing is the elephant in the room, the levy increase. Now you can't continue to train at the investment levels where we are training at. In 97, 98, when we ushered the Skills Development Levies Act, we found that our competitors were training at 4% at the time. And we started, man's going to go. They're going to go to our workplace providers, which we no more have. They're going to go to our technical schools to ensure that there is a ready pipeline of students that come through the system, but who are ready for skills development. Sometimes those technical schools don't even have to be high schools, as we've seen in China and Japan, that they can be primary schools as well. You can introduce technology to primary school kids. It could be even better if it's locally produced. So we agree with your locally produced notion. We should also focus on the TVET support. I mean, one of the big problems with TVETs and even CETs is that the instruments of skills development, in the era where skills development has got enough funds, are the most who are carrying begging bowls. I mean, then there's a problem in the system. Besides the fact that NSF, in my calculation, sits with about 15 billion unspent funds, the SETAs collectively, and I know many SETA CEOs will refuse, sit with excess of 20 billion funds unspent, and they've got funny accounts called investment accounts. And for me, that's treasonous. In fact, SETA CEOs and their boards should be taken to task for having investment accounts. What are you investing? When we're supposed to be putting learners onto education and training system. And we should ensure that TVET colleges have got enough equipment, have got work experience in terms of their learners, and they are really related to those particular workplaces, and ensure that the entire system understands what is at play. We currently have other aspects of the system not entirely understanding. So for me, those are two major things that we need to focus, which is the pipeline, the ILO convention, plus the funding. I think we need to have a conversation about the financing of skills development. Thanks.
Yeah. I get that very much well. If I may, MC, just to ask Ms. Naidu for her last comments, and then we can wrap up the panel, just to be fair. So, Ms. Naidu, with your best comrade voice, what you can wrap it up for us in terms of what must happen now, and what must we focus on in terms of how do we drive this drive to close the skills gap mismatch?
So I think, just like my comrade next door wants to tackle Dr. Nell, I have a bone to pick with Mr. Vijayan, because he spoke about industry not being organized. And I think from the CEO's presentation, we as industry are definitely co-creators and partners in collaboration with our PSET system, especially with regard to the FPNM CETA. A lot has been said, and I think for me what I would like to take away from today's discussion is the collaboration between maybe even academic institutions and industry, TVET colleges and industry. From the CEO's presentation, she also alluded to the fact that our facilitators need to have industry experience. So there needs to be more talks. I think that's what it boils down to. More talks, more collaboration for exactly what industry needs. Industry needs to be facilitated to TVET colleges and to academic institutions. Because at the end of the day, the students, Dr. Nell spoke about not wanting to take any of the students from the universities. We've taken students from universities, and we also found that they're just not up to scratch. But when you bring them into industry and you start teaching them the industry way, then they start doing it. So there needs to be that collaboration between industry, academic institutions, as well as TVET colleges to make this skills revolution definitely work. The urgency for skills needs, the urgency for the skills revolution, let's keep talking. I think that's important. Conversation is key.
Thank you. I think let me just formally to thank the panel. I think by the rate of oohs and ahs and amens from the audience, it means that the conversation was worthwhile. And I think it's, for those that are in the audience, a starting point to pick up on the key issues that have been raised to continue these conversations outside. What my last thought is that there is a need for a demand-driven skills revolution rather than a supply-driven skills revolution. Master of Ceremonies, my apologies and thank you for the opportunities. Thank you to everyone on stage as well.
Thank you, panel.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the panel and the panel members. May I just ask that you go that side and pose for a picture? It is the protocol that we need to observe as planned, or we would have like few minutes, 13:30 sharp. Come. Yes, sir. For,
When they took over the independence, they have pleaded that they want a project 2061. Remember, it was 1960. So it's a 100-year program for developing the primary sector of education and all the whole schooling system. So with us, we are holding where the damage is already made. If you find a rotten tomato, you are going to have a rotten tomato soup. There's no way you could have innovation in that regard. The other aspect in closing, industries, as the speakers have spoken, little by little, I've been handling the mega companies of this country, of which almost half of them, they have been liquidated. There are things that, there are pointers that says that whatsoever skill we come in with, there is a shortfall. So we need to integrate this. Let's request the Minister of Basic Education to be with us. That side, they speak of a teacher development, innovation. Also here, we need to talk about taking our college, most college lecturers, they have never been to the workplace. Those of us from CITAS, we know this. It has been a package that we were compelled to take various college lecturers to the various workplaces, such that as they teach, there is a reform of the curriculum. We cannot have the ratio of a 3 wheelbarrow of sand, 1 bag of cement in the time where you speak of ready mix. We need to innovate, change that curriculum at VETS, change that curriculum at the University of Pretoria, because the varsities, they are not speaking. Whatsoever that comes out there, learners, when we are doing workplace approval, they critique us as specialists who do the workplace approval and distort to say that, but what we're doing in this company is not what we are doing at school. So those are the challenges that we're facing as a country. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Program Director.
who mustn't leave?
Your Majesty.
The guests.
Yeah, because of the gifts, but then we will distribute them after.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We actually didn't get your name. If you can just introduce yourself. Just 1 second.
Vusinkambule from the CITA, Construction CITA.
From
Thank
Construction
you
CITA. Thank you very
scientist
much
by
for your
profession.
remarks. There, another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that needs to be repeated or anything like that. The message is loud and clear. And we can then take it forward in the conversations that will unfold. So 2 issues. One is the involvement of the basic education, so from ECD, where actually learning and development starts. And then the other is the question of exposing lecturers to industry. We'll note that. Thank you very much, Sir, for those remarks once more. I must just take this opportunity to also thank the panel for the valuable contributions. I couldn't even manage the time in that regard. The conversation was just flowing. I'm mindful of the time, colleagues, and I had a very strict instruction that by 13:30, if lunch is ready, we need to break for lunch. Because if we leave lunch lying there for hours, then we'll also have other issues that we need to deal with. So, I will request that we take a lunch break at this point. Lunch was supposed to be at 13:30. I'm informed that lunch is ready, so we can break for lunch. Which then means I'm giving you 10 minutes more. And I'm just going to request that in return, you give me 10 minutes back. So we were supposed to resume at 14:20. May I request that we resume at 14:10? If we do that, we'll then be able to manage the time that we have for today. I think everyone really looks forward to knocking off at the time that we had promised you. So lunch is served. Before we do that, I'm also informed that I must kindly request that you don't leave before lunch, or rather after lunch. So those that are fasting before lunch, those that will be engaging on what has been served for you, that will be before lunch, but please don't leave. There are a couple of gifts that have been prepared for you. So if you could please just grab that before you leave, but that will only be available after lunch. Thank you very much for your audience. Appreciate it. Yes, you can please clap. Thank you kindly. Appreciate you. Thank you.